Hey guys, welcome back. It's Attorney Jack from CruiseCasinoMafia.com. So this is just a quick video. It may not be for everybody. If you guys are only interested in demos and showing new systems, this video may not be for you. But I thought that it would be a good time to do a video like this, since this topic that I've been on forever is now finally being discussed at more length and taken seriously by some of the other Baccarat channels, things like that, especially some of the Filipino channels. If you guys have been around in the Baccarat world for a while, you'll know that most of the Asian countries and the Filipinos as well, they love Baccarat. They will play it. This is their game. And the only problem is that most of the YouTube channels that are from those areas, the problem is they do a great job with interesting bet selections, but that's all they know, apparently, is Martingale, or Escalara, as they call it. They just keep doubling their bets and doubling their bets, and you know how I feel about that. It's basically the Russian roulette of gambling. But all of a sudden lately, I have seen some of these guys have been around for a while finally realizing that there's other things they can do other than doubling bets after a loss. So I think that that's awesome. I think that's great because some of these guys have done such a cool job coming up with bet selections, and now maybe we'll finally get them in the fold to start looking at other money management possibilities as well. Because you know how I feel. I'm not one of those guys that, you know, that is saying that my way is the only way. I'm so excited to see other people's abilities, original concepts and ideas. So I watch lots of channels, I read tons of books and message boards, and you know, every once in a while there's somebody that has an interesting thought, and it's something that we should all test and build on. That's the way that it works. There's no ego here. You guys know that. I could care less. I'm just looking for stuff that works and that we can take forward and bring to you. So just a few quick things that I wanted to bring out. So on the topic here of money management, so for people that are newer viewers, right, you guys know what Martingale is. You know what that means. It means that after a loss, you're going to double. Some people will limit how many times they double and then basically consider that a stop loss, which is perfectly fine. At least you're not doubling to death. Other people try older methods of manipulating their money, like D'Alembert, Fibonacci, things like that. And if you want to understand how those work, there's certainly tons of videos on YouTube that will explain to you how those math models work. And they're viable. They're viable. I have no issue with anything like that, as long as you understand what you're getting into and you understand the risk to reward. But this channel specifically, publicly, as well as for our private members of CruiseCasinoMafia.com, we look at things a little differently. And there's a few other channels and people that I respect in the industry, like Donnie, you know, our buddy Donnie, and some of the other guys like Baccarat Man, and a few other channels that also respect the fact that trying to make your money back and recover instantly with every single bet is usually ridiculous. I'm not saying it doesn't work at all, but I'm telling you that in the long term, it's just not the way to go. If you're gambling for the weekend excitement, do what you want to do. But if you're looking at this as a business, which is the way we do, Martingale just doesn't work. Straight Martingale or the Grand Martingale or any of that. It's complete nonsense most of the time. You're going to lose eventually. It's just the clock is ticking on how long it's going to take. So what we usually teach people how to do are various other money management methods. So if you're part of the club, so to speak, of our private membership, we currently have 2 volumes of different money management that can be used. okay? And some of them are more aggressive than others, so basically we cater to everybody's needs. But these are all approved methods that you can test out and you can try. Now, some of them are not going to work for 2-to-1 bets. Some of them are not going to work for combo bets. So many of them are designed to work with even money bets like Baccarat or the even money bets in roulette. So make no mistake about it that some of the combo bet stuff we show for roulette, that has its own vibe. That's a totally different world than looking at money management for mostly even money bets. So I figured I would do a quick video here and kind of just explain this morning while I'm out for breakfast and I'm getting back to the house to do some private videos. I would give you guys a little bit of a heads up as to what the differences are when you're looking at some of this stuff. So I think we beat a dead horse to death when it comes to Martingale. So let's talk about, well, what are the alternatives if you're not going to double up after a loss? Okay, well, let's talk about a few of these things. So Martingale and many of these that actually are looking to recover or do something different after a loss are called negative progressions. All right, there's various different negative progressions. And then you also have what's called positive progressions. So the way that positive progressions work in gaming or sports betting or even trading is that you're going to bet the same amount of money after a loss. You're not going to increase, which means that if you're going through one of those bad waves where your bet selection is not working, you're not going to fight it, right? You're not going to fight it. You're not going to bet 2 units after a 1-unit loss, and you're not going to bet 3 units or 4 units after that second loss. You're going to ride that wave, and you're going to get out the other side, and you're eventually going to have a win, right? And we know on even money bets, it's approximately a 50-50. The odds are approximately 50-50. They're a little less, right? Because of whatever the odds are for that game. But eventually, we're going to get out on the other side. We're going to have 2, 3, 4 losses in a row, and then maybe we're going to have 2 wins in a row before we have another loss. So when we use a positive progression, we're talking about riding the positive waves. So the longer the positive wave lasts, the better we are with a positive progression. So a positive progression is when we bump up our bet size only after wins. Only after wins. Now, some people don't like this because they feel that they don't get enough wins in a row to be able to make up for the losses. That's a fallacy, okay? That's another one of those ridiculous fallacies, and that is more of a psychological thing than it is anything else. The problem when you look and when most people evaluate stuff is that they play something or try something for 15 minutes and magically make this evaluation that something works or doesn't work. Or they use 1 shoe or 2 shoes of Baccarat and magically tell you that it's not working. Well, the crazy thing about that is they don't understand what testing is even about, okay? You can't get a valid test or some type of conclusion unless you've done hundreds or sometimes thousands of results before you can make these ridiculous conclusions, all right? So our positive progressions, do they work? They can work. They're not for everybody, and I understand that, all right? I understand that. But the other thing is, the wrinkle with positive progressions is how far down that rabbit hole you choose to go. So the same thing we talk about is how many negative progressions you're comfortable with. Well, it's the same way with positive progressions. No one is telling you that you should be doubling up when you win and when you win and when you win to try to go as far as you can, because you aren't capturing any profits there. So there are positive progressions that that don't continue to double up, that somehow pull back a little bit. So you're not putting all of the money that you just won on the previous bet into the next bet, all right? There are also positive progressions that you can play with that, that have a limit. So maybe you're only going to do a positive progression for 3 steps. And then if you win that 3rd step, you're going to go back to your base bet. So there are a lot of different things you can try to do. Now, so that's what a positive progression is. So that's the flip side of a negative progression. The third thing that we talk about a lot, and that many people for years and years were erroneously telling people that they can't make money flat betting. So flat betting is not a positive progression. Flat betting is not a negative progression. Flat betting is exactly what we're saying it is, which is whether we win or lose, we're going to bet the same amount, okay? And for years, people were told that you can't make any money flat betting because of the odds in the games themselves. Well, that's absolutely something that is completely ridiculous and false, because there are many, many times, depending on what your bet selection is and what you're doing, that flat betting will work, okay? I'm not saying it works for every bet selection. I'm not saying it works for every game. But I'm telling you that if you're still in that category of people that think that the only way you can make money is to have major progressions, that's completely ridiculous. Now, let's talk about the positive and the negative side of flat betting. If you're doing this for a short-term high because you want action, you're probably not going to like flat betting, okay? That's on you. That's not on math, and that's not on us, all right? We're here to make money in the long term. We're not here to make money in the next 10 minutes, because making money in the next 10 minutes doesn't provide paychecks on a consistent basis, and that's what we're all about. If you're going to use any type of flat betting mentality or anything close to flat betting, you really have to have a long-term view. What does that mean? It means that you have to understand that this is an ongoing venture, okay? It's an ongoing venture. Yes, we all want to make money when we walk out of the casino. Yes, we all want every session to be a positive. I understand that. But the sooner you understand that you're going to have losing sessions and you need to be okay with that, is the sooner that the light bulb moment happens, the same way that it did for me trading Forex or trading crypto or trading stocks years ago. Stop trying to fight the fact that you're not going to win every single time, and understand that the key is not winning all the time. The key is evaluating how often you're going to lose, and what does that volatility in your bankroll look like. That is more important than the guy that's telling you that he averages 15 units a shoe or whatever nonsense, okay? That's not the important part. The important part is whatever money management you're using, whatever bet selection you're using, how far does the rubber band stretch on the negative side? You're going to be right whether you close your eyes and randomly use a bet selection. You're going to be right a certain percentage of the time. So you're going to make money on those bets. That is not how to evaluate any type of trading or money management. The way that you evaluate money management is how bad the bad times are, and how fast do you move out of those bad times and back to zero, because you can't get back in profit without getting back to break even, right? We know that. So the moral of the story is, if you're going to use any type of flat betting, or what we've been showing publicly on the channel, our version of the 3-bet flat betting method, and you can go back and see that in the last few Baccarat videos, you have to be comfortable that one shoe and two shoes and looking at things independently or independent shoes is not the way we view the world. We view the world as one big shoe because that's the way you have to. And we move from one shoe to the next shoe to the next shoe. Because even though they want you to look at it as a single shoe, everybody that actually makes money here will tell you that it's an ongoing process. And that putting this fake end of the shoe story on all evaluations is ridiculous. So with that being said, flat betting is viable with some bet selections, as long as you're willing to continue to roll, which means that if you finish a shoe and you're negative, it's not the end of the world. Just keep rolling those negatives into the next shoe, into the next session, whatever that may be. That is the only way to play and use a long-term basis for making money, right? That's the only way to do it. So let's talk about a couple of other things. So if there's positive progressions and if there's negative progressions and there's flat betting, what else do we have? What other possibilities are there? Well, I can't go into full detail on this video because a lot of these money management concepts are available in the 2 released volumes that we're giving to our members. We will be pushing out a 3rd volume probably very soon. And these are ongoing. As we determine that new money management methods are working, we include them in the next volume. Some of these have been shown for free on the channel, but quite a few of them have never been shown on this channel because it's not something that that's fair to our members to be able to show it publicly. But I do want to talk about a couple of things that you've seen on other channels and you've seen me talk about here, and it's kind of a hybrid or an in-between. So it's not flat betting, but it's not an intense martingale, right? And these are things that I totally believe in, okay, that are viable. But again, you have to test them against your bet selection, and you have to see what works best for what your objectives are. So what I'm talking about now are limited progressions, right? There's a martingale style element, but they're very cut off. They're not ongoing. They're not putting major pressure on your bankroll. And these are progressions that are negative. You're only progressing for these after a loss. And there's a caveat there, and I'll explain it. So these are progressions that are extremely limited. They can be a 1-2-3. They can be a 2-1-2. They can be a 1-2-4. They can be more aggressive, and they can be a 1-3-5. So on these, what you're doing is you're limiting the progressions to only 3 steps. Is it still more aggressive than flat betting? Of course it's more aggressive than flat betting. There's no doubt about it, okay? Do they work? Yes, they work, but of course you have to test these against whatever bet selection that you're running. Is this kind of the answer somewhat for people that don't have as much patience and would like to get in and get out in their sessions and maybe try to not roll over losses from one shoe to another or one session to another, depending on the game you're playing? Yeah, I guess so. But that doesn't mean that you finish every shoe in the positive. Absolutely. There's nothing that can guarantee you that, right? Nothing. But this is the step up from flat betting, right? A 1-2-3, a 1-2-4, a 1-3-5, things like that. And they are very viable, but you have to see what the bankroll requirements are for whatever you're playing and mix and match that. There is more bankroll required, obviously, to play a 1-2-4 than there is to flat bet. So that's the other thing that needs to be rolled in. Now, here's the caveat. And I've done a lot of testing with a lot of different bet selections here, okay? And I will tell you that one of the things that's very interesting that you may, if you're new to this stuff, you may want to try as well. And it's fascinating, okay? So let's explain this for a minute. If everything we do is based on a 3-bet scenario, right? Let's just say it's a 1, 2, 3. You can put any numbers you want, okay? I don't really care. It doesn't matter for this hypothetical. If everything comes down to a 1, 2, 3, and you have 10,000 baccarat results consecutively, in shoes, 1,000 shoes of results. In the short term, if you do what I'm saying to you, the numbers are going to be all over the place. But if you do this in the long term, it's very interesting. And here's what I'm talking about. Instead of using a 1, 2, 3 or a 1, 2, 4, and only use the progression after a loss, what happens if you actually force it? What happens if you force a 1, 2, 3 or a 1, 2, 4? Meaning that it doesn't matter whether you win or lose. You're always going to bet 1. The next one is going to be a 2. The next one is going to be a 4. The next one is going to be a 1. The next one is going to be a 2. The next one's going to be a 4. What happens when you do that? Well, if you do it in the short term, and most people are not willing to test anything long term, that's the problem. They will say, their brains will tell them when they look at the short-term results, man, I'm always losing on that 3rd bet. So I'm losing 3 units or whatever it may be, 4 units on that 3rd bet all the time. And I'm giving back everything I made on the 1, 2. Well, not true. Absolutely not true. The longer that you do this and the longer you do the testing, the longer that you will realize that everything works out in the end. There is no magic to only losing more on the 3rd bet or winning more on the 1st bet or the 2nd bet. It all comes out in the wash eventually, okay? Eventually. And by doing a rolling type of scenario where it's a dynamic betting, right? Where you don't care whether you win or lose. You're just betting, right? You're now focused on the bet selection. And it's very interesting how your brain changes when you do this, okay? It's actually like flat betting. Think about it for a minute. It's almost the same as flat betting. It's just that you're doing a different amount on each one of the 3 bets. But in reality, when you look at it over 1,000 shoes, it is flat betting. It's almost the same as flat betting, right? It's just a different version of flat betting. So we have had very interesting results over the years doing this rolling style. And I just wanted to bring it up because it's something that many people don't even attempt to do. And that's what we're doing here, is opening people's brains, knowing that you don't have to martingale, knowing that you don't have to do crazy double ups, knowing that flat betting is a possibility for some, knowing that a 3-bet scenario is also an excellent possibility, knowing that you can be flexible and use a negative progression and use a 3-bet progression, or do something interesting and try it with this rolling scenario. There are so many things that you can do outside of martingale. And this is just scratching the surface of what we're showing people in these different volumes of money management. I'm happy to report that there are other channels now on YouTube that are discussing various different money management techniques, and it's not just martingale in disguise. There are several channels over the last year that say they don't martingale. And in reality, it's a martingale. Just because on the 3rd one, you're betting the same thing and you're not doubling up there, but you're doubling on the next one. You're doubling on the next one. And then you're betting the same thing. And then you're doubling up. It's a martingale. Please, give me a break, okay? Is it slowing up the martingale? Absolutely. Is it better than a straight martingale or a grandma? Absolutely. But there's other things you can attempt to do. So we're not lazy here, and several other channels are not lazy. They are attempting to show you, just like we are, that there's a whole gateway of things that you can do to manage and manipulate your betting. And that's what you're doing. That's all you're doing is accounting. You're manipulating the bets, all right? You're manipulating the bets. And the key is to stop looking at things from the short-term viewpoint and to test things over time and to evaluate and realize that just because you're, let's say you made 7 units or 5 units in the shoe, but at the end you captured those, you grabbed those, you won those, but for whatever reason, you finished the shoe and you're down 3 units, okay? That's not a loss. That's not a loss. That's the end of the session. That's all it is. So stop evaluating things in such narrow terms and start opening your eyes to the fact that this is a long-term game. That's what the casino doesn't want you to do. They don't want you to look at this as anything more than a night out, entertainment. Start looking at this as a long-term business model, and your eyes will open up and you will change the way that you view everything that you thought you knew before. With that being said, we'll get back to system videos and demos. Start trying some of these other methods. Start playing with them. Start testing them. And if you want more information and you want us to help you get there, take a look at joining cruisecasinomafia.com. Use the code MAFIA50. And we have something new coming very, very soon, which is another way for you to access this information and to be able to join if you can't afford the lifetime membership. And I always said that was coming, and we're on the verge of releasing that new way of joining. So stay tuned. We'll see you on the next video. Have a great day. And remember, guys, there's nothing more important than simulating and practicing. It's not about taking something that you saw on YouTube and running to the casino. That's absolutely the worst thing you can do. Whether it's something I've shown you or something somebody else has shown you, take a deep breath. There's a million simulators for all of these games on the internet. Simulate, practice. And that's probably, I have a load of fun doing it. So I don't know why more people are not, using that before they go to the casino. I enjoy simulating and testing more than I do playing. So that's just the way it goes. We'll see you on the next video. I hope you got something out of this, and we'll see you next time.